Hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you on Wednesday, August 9th. And today, a quick video about some more price action in Bitcoin. If you haven't been watching it lately, after maybe it was taking a month off for summer vacation, price has been sitting there for a while, and now we're back into new high territory. Hit about came close to 3,500 a couple days ago. It's really just been in the last week where the price has started moving up again, and it's interesting because certainly I know there's some people who like Cliff High. It's interesting seeing the amount of folks that get very upset with him. Although to the degree that I've found his data about the cryptocurrencies and some of his forecasts pretty interesting, this actually fits the pattern of exactly what he has predicted would happen. He calls it the crocodile tooth, where we see these moves and then comes back a little bit, consolidates, and then continues to move forward. Cliff predicts some pretty stunning valuations for a lot of the cryptos, especially over the next year, next half year, next several years. And I continue to lean towards thinking that we're just in the beginning stages as well. Mainly for the fact that, again, how many people do you know that actually own a cryptocurrency, let alone what's the percentage of people who are even aware that it exists or of any of the things that are happening? Again, a bubble is usually when everyone is piling in and there's no underlying fundamental value. Yes, I understand there's an ongoing debate of whether there is any intrinsic value of the cryptocurrencies or not. At the same time, is there any intrinsic value of the dollar? And even one could take it a step further, and I say this as someone who's a big advocate of gold and silver, but still, those metals, what is their intrinsic value? Well, it's the intrinsic value that we place on it. Yes, gold and silver have been money, a long track record. Particular silver, again, I think one of the biggest advantages is how many industrial applications there are. So you could forget about the monetary aspect of that, and still there are a lot of factors going in the favor of silver. But still, what is intrinsic value is a bit of a relative thing. And so with Bitcoin, well, if you have a system that can replace the failing currencies, well, there's a lot of intrinsic value in that, and we'll set aside some of the other applicational values that the cryptos have. Again, we talked a little bit yesterday about Veritasium and some of the things that are possible and just building a better, more honest, and more efficient infrastructure in so many of these industries where, like healthcare or mortgages, where there's such a huge chunk going to the middleman. But even aside from those, I mean, there's intrinsic value that, let's say the Fed comes out tomorrow and says, well, here's QE 5, 6, and 7, and we see an escalation of the deterioration of the dollar, which is happening now. We're not talking about something that's in the future anymore. Some of the quick metrics you could look at, I think the rise in Bitcoin and the cryptos is the first. And again, I guess nobody knows, but when I listen to the people who invested in Bitcoin, why they invested in it, and why they're continuing to buy it, I mean, it's not, my opinion on this isn't important, but why are people actually going out and buying it? And a lot of them are doing it because they see what's happening in the currency. Now, there's another metric, the dollar index, which you've seen the dollar get pummeled in. Of course, that's measuring the dollar against the euro and the other paper currencies. So maybe not the best metric really to think of the value of the dollar, but one that Wall Street looks at, and at least is one of their primary ones, And lastly, I think you'd see the same thing happening in gold and silver if the banks weren't writing unlimited paper. But for those reasons, it's not showing up there. Now, when you think why particularly now would we be seeing these moves in the cryptos? Well, at some point it has to happen. You look historically, any of the debased currencies, none of what is happening is new in a traditional sense. Similarly, with gold and silver, there's going to be some point where they're set free, whether someone comes in demanding more metal, or if you have, I mean, the other factor is that, geez, if you look at a year of Trump and all the things that are going on inside the White House, it certainly looks as if some of these things are on their last legs. In particular, there was some news yesterday which wasn't too encouraging. In the last few days, Kim Jong-un of North Korea has basically been saying, hey, we have our nuclear program, we're using it for self-defense, stop bullying us around, and we'll leave my thoughts or commentary on that aside for the moment. What's interesting, Trump yesterday demanded Korea not make any more threats. And his quote, North Korea, best not make any more threats to the U.S. They will be met with the fire and the fury like the world has never seen. He has been very threatening beyond a normal state, Trump says, referring to Kim Jong-un, which, A, is a pretty bold statement in and of itself. So here you see two personalities getting ratcheted up where it doesn't seem like either of them are really that personality type that likes to back down or take the high road or say, hey, the guy's running his mouth. It kind of almost reminds you of two guys who have been drinking a lot in a bar, and then once they start getting heated, the logic goes out the window. And unfortunately, after Trump's statement, we have another update here. Within hours of Trump's comments, North Korea made its most specific threat against the U.S. yet. Through its media, North Korea said it was considering firing missiles at Guam, a U.S. territory in the Pacific, and making the U.S. the first to experience the might of the strategic weapons of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. Which is certainly concerning to hear that we have people with the ability to press a nuke button that are getting ratcheted up in a conversation like that. Let's hope and pray cooler heads prevail at some point. But again, these are the types of things, you hear sanctions against Russia. It's almost as if Trump but it's not just Trump. This has been going on for a while, where it's like, how much can we antagonize and push these guys? Which, especially when they're your biggest creditors, buyers of dollars, doesn't seem like an ideal plan. But perhaps that's factoring into the Bitcoin rise. And maybe Bitcoin is telling us that we're getting closer to where we see some of these dollar ways of life, the things that go on with all the printed money that are unsustainable. Maybe we're getting a little closer to that point. So again, I did buy some cryptos over the past couple of months. My plan is just to hold them for a while, because if you really do have a break point in the dollar, I think there's a lot of value to the cryptos. I think there's a lot of value to gold and silver. Continue to believe we'll see that sooner than later. Although, again, just keep in mind, let's say the dollar and credit cards disappeared tomorrow. One of the advantages, which is not that it replaces entirely, but gold and silver, maybe someone comes out. I guess we do have debit cards for things like that exist now. But in terms of an infrastructure in a digital world that we live in, I think that we're just seeing the beginning of the cryptos. So even at these prices, I'm not interested in selling my crypto anytime soon. Again, not giving any specific financial advice, because against the regulator code, that would make me a heathen. So we won't do that today, but hopefully this gives you a few things to think about. You can be aware that they are on the move again. And certainly if you subscribe to the Cliff High perspective, it's the beginning of an exciting period of time. But leave your comments below. Let me know if you agree or not, and if you have any questions, and we will see you again tomorrow. Thanks.